You are listening to the GAA Hour, brought to you by Sports Joe and Sure. 72-hour non-stop protection, tested to the limits. Sure, it won't let you down.
Hello and welcome to the GAR, brought to you by Sure 72-hour protection. So the season has ended, the dust is settled, and Dublin are indeed the All-Ireland champions. They beat Kerry in the final, and to help me review that match is Niall McIntyre and a very disappointed Kerry legend, Marc Ó Sé. Mark, how are we?
We're down in the dumps, Lee. We're very, very low at the moment. Sure, what can you say? A great Dublin team. They're breaking a lot of our records now, and it's a tough one to take. My uncle Páidí had eight All-Ireland medals, and now the three boys, James McCarthy, Mick Fitzsimons, and who else?
Cluxton.
Cluxton thereafter breaking the record. And you know what? Good luck to them. They're great footballers. But it's a tough one, because you know we were always we used to always, Dublin Kerry was such a huge rivalry, and it always is. But for the last few years, obviously Dublin are coming out in tops, and you know we thought yesterday maybe we might just win it, and unfortunately it went down the stretch and we didn't.
Well, be honest with me, Mark. How does a Kerry man deal with such a disappointment when you're in Dublin, you're in the city? How did you initially react?
I went across the road to the Croke Park Hotel and met a few pals, and after a while looked for a taxi to get out of the hotel, and just started walking, and before I knew it I was in the Boar's Head. So yeah, look, I mean, you can't begrudge Dublin, because I think the rivalry is a healthy rivalry. I think I go back as far as even myself and Alan Brogan, great pals in college together, and even now Alan's small fella Hugo and my small fella Ty, like we call out to their house and they call to ours, and look, it's very healthy, and you know that's G8, you know.
Mm-hmm. And did you see any of the Dublin lads out? Any of the former players like Berno or Paddy?
No, I didn't. No, I just, as I say, I met a few of my pals, and Alan was doing his thing and I was doing my thing. But met Ger Brennan, met Cian O'Sullivan, you know, and they were across the road in the hotel. But no, I didn't really meet Alan. Alan would be my best pal now, say, from the Dublin team. You know,
Yeah.
we're good pals. We'd often be throwing messages at each other and having a bit of crack, you know, but no, didn't meet him yesterday.
Does it make it particularly difficult that it kind of felt as if Kerry's time was coming now, that they'd won last year, they might make it back-to-back, and that maybe Dublin were on the end and that Kerry weren't able to get over the line?
I always think that, with the exception obviously of the Dublin 6 in a row, I always think that teams struggle with the back-to-back, and I always thought it was going to be a really tough draw to trying to get the back-to-back, and when the game started I was very confident, but I just saw that we were playing the game on Dublin's terms, in my view. Like, you just look at, say, Con, like we had Tadhg Morley, who basically used to do the Cian O'Sullivan role in terms of sitting and trying to, you know, nullify the dangerous players in the full forward line for Dublin, say. And we weren't, basically they put Con O'Callaghan centre forward, so all of a sudden Tadhg Morley had to come out and play as that player and mark him, and then Con went in, so then Tadhg Morley was full back, so we weren't playing the game on our terms, we were playing it on Dublin's terms. So there, all of a sudden I said, do you know what, this is going to be a different game today.
It was slow, wasn't it, in the first 15-20 minutes, and Kerry, maybe they give a short kick out and they kind of give it straight back. Dublin will get set up and the attack will be slow then. And I think David Clifford had probably only touched the ball and he looked sharp in the first 50 minutes, but he'd probably only touched it once or twice.
Yeah, well, for the first, I'd say 15 minutes, he probably only touched the ball 3 or 4 times. You know, and then he gets the ball inside under the hill and he just puts that great pass into Paul Ganey, who, I don't know, did he hop it twice? But that said, you know what, lads, I was having a chat with a fellow last night and he said that Kevin McMillan, when he got the goal in 2011, he hopped the ball twice, so these things have a way of balancing each other out.
That's interesting. I need to check that out. Mickey Hart said on the BBC that he did hop it twice, but Maurice Deegan, they have him like on call, and he said no, he sort of dropped it onto his foot.
And he picked it up with the leg.
He was like, it's a weird one because he was a bit all over the place initially, but then he had brilliant improvisation, to save himself. So it was just a really skillful thing in the end. So
it was, and you know what? He missed one before that.
Yeah.
And I mean, it was at Darragh Kinnaid was saying beforehand, if you get a goal today, it might be worth even 6 points. That goal for Kerry was definitely worth it. But then Dublin come back and get the goal afterwards, and my God, like it was a real key period of the game where Paddy Small gets the ball, Paul Murphy gets a great block, unbelievable block. But such is the rain, the ball ricochets off the ground and it goes to the back of the net, and like you could actually say that if the weather was good, if it was a dry ball, David Clifford could have had maybe 8 points. But you could also say that for like Paul Mannion or Pascal or whoever, so I think Dublin deserved it on the day.
Well, just on that with the Dublin forwards, you mentioned Conor Callaghan starting at centre half, moving, and Kerry reacting to that. With the full forward line that Dublin have, and even the half forward line, they're all shooters: Colin Pascal, Cormac Costello, Conor Callaghan. You can't really leave any of them on their own, so you have to man mark all of them. No,
I think that when you look at it, Dublin have more, like say, players that you have to mind, whereas Kerry, you look at Kerry and you say, okay, David Clifford, obviously, Páidí Clifford, who was exceptional in the second half, unbelievable. Páidí Ó Sé. After that, like, if you're going out as a defender for Dublin, you're not, like, is Dara Moynihan going to shoot the lights out? He's a great footballer. He works his socks off, but he's not going to kill you on the scoreboard. Now, Stephen O'Brien, in fairness, he's a great footballer. But I just felt going into the game, if we could nullify their forwards, and keep them quiet, we had a great chance. But they had such, and even Con, again yesterday, he wasn't the Con of old, but they had Mannion, they had Pascal, and you're right, like Lee, it's you're trying to contain all these players, and it's a very hard thing to do.
You kind of had done it, like coming up to before the Paddy Small goal, really, it looked like Kerry were turning the tap and they were 3 points up, and then that was just such a turning point then. And I know Kerry did get the 3 points after, but Jack O'Connor was saying, maybe we expended too much energy trying to get back ahead again. Like, did you feel at some stage early in the second half that Kerry were that they were coming here?
I mean, at half time I would have said like that we needed to get more out of other players. Like, say, obviously David is going to be so well man-marked by the likes of Mick Fitzsimons and all the other players. But I just felt like that we needed to get other players into the game. Shawnee, Páidí, Diarmuid O'Connor and Gavin White. And it wasn't happening. But then Páidí stood up and I thought he was exceptional. Do you know what I mean?
He was the best player on the pitch.
He was unbelievable. And like the first one he got in the second half, where he just kind of, and it's a hard kick. He's outside the D. It's a really hard kick, but like great score. And then he followed it up with 2 more, like unbelievable performance by Páidí. And going into the game, you'd say, I was picking my All-Star team going into the game, and I didn't have Páidí on. Páidí's nailed on after yesterday,
Yeah, a lot of people sort of named their place to the team just after yesterday's performance. A few people maybe lost their place, and like in the Sunday game team, they didn't pick Cormac Costello, but going into this game, he was on fire. He was nearly the danger man in particular out of that Dublin forward line that they had to look after. What do you think happened? How did Thomas Sullivan stop him, or was it a case of he was so obsessed with Thomas Sullivan?
Yeah, I mean, again, I go back to it. I think we played the game on Dublin's terms. There was one stage where, Tom O'Sullivan is so, I think it was during Peter Keane's reign, where Tom O'Sullivan was allowed free rein, go up the field, kick a few points outside the left boot, which he's so good at. And that didn't happen in the semi-final and the final. And you know what? It's a great, actually, if you look at it, if you're going out and you're trying to set up against the opposition and you're talking about Tom O'Sullivan, it's a nice tribute to Tom O'Sullivan that people are actually they're planning for him, because he has that kick in his locker. It didn't happen in the semi-final, didn't happen in the final, but at one stage, Tom O'Sullivan, I saw him running into the full forward line, and he's that kind of player. He can play in any position in the field, and just look, yesterday wasn't the day for Tom. Costello, obviously, the plaudits go with Dublin, but not Tom's day and not Kerry's day.
Yeah, and you say there about setting up for the Dubs. Obviously, the man in charge of that was Jack O'Connor. You played under him twice. You were there for both his reigns.
Twice, yeah.
Yeah. So you know better than most. He's a proud Kerry man. He definitely wouldn't have went into that game thinking we're reacting. He would have thought that Kerry are going to be the, on the front foot sort of thing.
Great manager. Jack is a great manager, and you know what? He would have gone into that game with the Kerry plan, what we're going to do, and I think just Dublin had that physicality, Lee. They just were man for man. They were saying that James McCarthy didn't really have a great game. For me, James McCarthy was taking lumps out of fellas. He was going after, and that's what you want. If there was a transfer market tomorrow morning, you'd have James McCarthy straight away, the way that he just goes after fellas. And
do you think that sets the tone, Mark?
It sets the tempo. And even I was looking at the stats at half time. I think Kerry had something like 64%. And I'm still thinking no, we're still playing the game on Dublin's terms. And of course you had Cluxton in goal and all his kickouts. In the semi-final, Kerry just pushed up on Oran Lynch in the last few minutes of the game, and all of a sudden we get a few kickouts. When Cluxton went long, we did okay, but often Brian Howard, how many times did he get the ball? I would say 14 or 15 times Brian Howard was the outlet, and we didn't we should have been so tuned into that, but we weren't.
You mentioned there the physicality. I think just before we went on air, we showed you the clip of Mick Fitzsimons and Cormac Costello in the warm-up getting laid into each other even before a ball was thrown in. That just shows you how up for it this Dublin team were and how personally they'd taken the last 2 years. You think Kerry maybe lacked that a little? Yeah.
I always remember my Uncle Páidí saying to me in 1982 when they lost to Offaly for the 5 in a row. Now, he wouldn't really dwell on it, but he always said 82 was a tough one, and then they come back in 83 in the Munster final when championship was championship and was knockout, and Tyke Murphy got a goal in the Munster final to knock Kerry out in the last minute again. So 2 years in the bounce. Kerry lost 82-83. They come back in centenary year 84. They win the league and they win the championship. And you could just see, I just felt the last 2 years, Dublin, they lost to Kerry with that last minute free Páidí Ó Sé. If that game goes down the stretch, you'd nearly give Dublin the advantage. And the previous year was it Diarmuid O'Connor stuck his leg out just by the end line, and the ball stays in play, and they win the game against Dublin. So they never really went away, in my view. And James McCarthy's speech kind of, we owed it to the team, we owed it to Desi, we owed it to ourselves. They were never class as permanent, in fairness, and Dublin have that.
Isn't it kind of a crown and glory for a lad like James McCarthy, Mick Fitzsimons, that after you feel like they're going away and people are saying Kerry are coming, that they stood up again?
Yeah, well, to be honest with you, James McCarthy is just an incredible footballer. How many years has he gone to go now? He can play anywhere, any position. I remember 2019, the drawn match, he was inside full back marking Tommy Walsh. 20, and then the replay, he was out the middle of the field, and he was the reason they won the replay, in my view, out the middle of the field. Jim, fantastic footballer. And I actually, do you know what? It was a tough day for me yesterday watching the Dubs win the game, but if there was any man to go up the steps, James McCarthy winning Sam Maguire, I was delighted for him, being totally honest.
After the match, he did the interview with Desi Farrell, and he came in with a pint of Guinness. A Dublin backroom team member actually came in and gave him the pint of Guinness, and sure.
In Croke Park?
In Croke Park, yeah.
I said that must have been a hairy pint in Croke Park.
Yeah, maybe so. But he was mentioning in his interview that even at his own wedding, back in, I think it was last November, that they were talking. He was saying to Desi that, you know, that was where it started, where we get Cluxton back, these boys back. Like, you know, it shows the kind of the mindset that he still has that hunger after.
Yeah,
all,
but
all
like
the
incredible.
years.
They got Cluxton back. They got Jack McCaffrey back. They got Mannion back. They got Pat Gilroy back. You know, and like incredible. Even Pat Gilroy, just his presence alone on the sideline, and you know, these fellas, they knew. Like we saw the Michael Jordan, The Last Dance, the whole production of that, and you get the feeling that the Dubs are on something similar, but I don't think it's The Last Dance. I think they'll be around for a while.
Do you think, just sort of talking about the impact of those players coming back and what it can do for a team like that, having a legend walk straight back through the door? The only time I can think just off my head with Kerry, maybe Paul Galvin. You know, any time in your career where players maybe left and came back like that?
Yeah, but like, you see, when it works, when you win, it's perfect, you know, because like it's as if this was the right decision. With Cluxton, like that was a really tough call by Desi, because David O'Hanlon is playing outstanding in goals. Evan Comerford is injured, so all of a sudden Cluxton comes in as number 2. And then all of a sudden Cluxton is in, and all the media are asking Desi, what's the story, why is Cluxton in? But sure, like, look at him yesterday, he was outstanding. Like, all his kickouts, the 2 frees, incredible performance. And, you know, like, I mean, like, I know by, like, the standards he sets are so high. And I would imagine when he goes back into that setup, all of a sudden the standards by the whole group are so high.
What was your initial thoughts when he came back in? Were you, this is wrong, this is right?
I was worried. Yeah, no, he was. I knew, like, I mean, the brief chats I would have with Cluxton, met him at Alan's 40th in Dublin. The brief chats I would have with him, I knew that they used base themselves on our team in, say, the noughties, and they wanted to reach those standards. By God, have they reached those standards and gone beyond.
In 2014, when you won your last one, you could compare it maybe to James McCarthy winning yesterday. I think he's similar age. Maybe you were 33, 34 then. He's the same now.
Yeah.
He's the same now. Is it hard to leave when you're after winning?
Oh yeah, it's very hard. It's like,
I know you stayed on.
It's like obviously a roller coaster you want to stay on, yeah. But it's very hard, and it's trying to know when to go. But I mean, these are calls. You see, it's not just like, say, calls that you make on your own. They're family calls. They're like calls where maybe you might have kids, you might have, you know, a career, whatever it is. And I don't know James McCarthy personally. I have a few chats with him, but everyone has their own call, and I'm sure he'll make the right call.
When you made the call in 2016, was it the body, or was it family, or was it a mix of a whole lot?
I played in the 2016 National League final against Dublin. It was 100 years anniversary from the Easter Rising, and I was actually 36 on the day that the game was on, and I was marking Bernard Brogan, and he got 4 points I think off me, and I knew after that, I said, this is game over. And I didn't start a championship game after that. Came on obviously, but didn't start a championship game after that. So that was it for me. When I wasn't starting, I felt that I wasn't having the same influence on the team, and that was the end really.
Isn't it going to be very hard then for lads like McCarthy, Fitzsimons, and people are talking about McCarthy maybe a footballer of the year, Fitzsimons, Mark Clifford yesterday.
Yeah.
Like, how are they going to stop off? Like, they're not.
But sure, like, why would they? Like, for me, Fitzsimons is still one of the best man markers in the game. We're talking about Chrissy McCaig, still one of the best man markers in the game. You saw the semi-final. You saw Clifford, the scores he got. Chrissy McCaig is stuck onto him. So, like, okay, it didn't happen for Clifford yesterday, but like that doesn't make Chrissy McCaig a bad defender. Mick Fitzsimons outstanding yesterday. Mm-hmm. So, again, it's their decision. I think that they can be as good next year, but you know, it's their decision.
Do you think then the likes of maybe Dean Rock, who isn't getting the game time that he probably wants, he'd be more leaning towards retirement?
I mean, I think that for me now would be an easy decision, because that was the way I was, say, going down the stretch. And when you're not getting your game time, definitely it's a very easy decision then, you know.
Because the commitment becomes tougher then that you're making when you're going in and you're not getting the reward.
Yeah, plus I suppose Dean was one of the main men for Dublin, you know, he was like the go-to guy. And he actually took the free kicking duties off Stephen Cluxton back in the day, and now he's not on the team, and Cluxton all of a sudden is back taking the free kicks again. So, but Dean, is it 8 All-Ireland medals now he has?
Yeah, he's got 8.
Incredible. Look, what a career he's had. And met him on a few occasions, lovely fella, you know, and like if he stays on, he could. If he doesn't, it's his decision.
Yeah,
you know?
and what a way for him to bow out. I think he got the last point with a free kick, and he was he's due to get married next week. So if it had went to a replay, I think he would have had to cancel his own wedding. So that's pressure.
Serious pressure, and I'd say he knew that when he was taking that free kick. So look, what a footballer, you know, and like I mean, it's you see this thing about the Dubs, they've all these players who, you know, you look at Kerry back in the 70s, the 80s, the Jackos, the Bombers, the Mikeys, the John Egans, the Páidí Lynches, the Páidís. Dubs, they have those players now, and we're still talking about them.
Mm-hmm.
What is it that hurts the most, Mark? Like when you're a Kerry supporter and you're a day like yesterday, is it that it's Dublin? Is it that, you know, or what is it that hurts? Like,
I think Niall, I think you know the answer to that. But anyway, it's not that really. It's like Kerry will beat Dublin, Dublin will beat Kerry. When I started off my career, we had great victories over Dublin. Never in the final. Dublin always, in 2011 was our first final. They beat us. I suppose, you know, one of the big things was my Uncle Páidí had the record with 8 with a lot of the Dubs.
Yeah.
And I suppose the boys, they overtook that yesterday, and I was actually thinking of my Uncle Páidí for a while, you know, with that record. But look, records are always there to be broken, and I mean, I don't think it diminishes Páidí's legacy in any way. He still has his record, but these fellas have been just exceptional. Mick Fitzsimons, Cluxton, James McCarthy, exceptional footballers.
when you're retired, like, is there still a bit of, like, there was obviously such a rivalry when you were playing Dublin. Is there still a bit of a rivalry, like, with Dublin lads who are retired? Is there still a bit of slagging, a bit of jousting on days like yesterday?
Yeah, sure, I'd be over and back with Alan Brogan, and we're good pals, and we'd be over and back slagging each other and having a crack, and he's good crack now, in fairness. And our two young fellas, Hugo and my fella Tig, we met last year for the semi-final, and we didn't actually meet yesterday, but there's great old crack. We call out to his house, they call to our, you know, and that was from college back in the day, you know, meeting up back in the day in college, and just keeping up that friendship, which is, I think, what the GA is all about, you know.
And just on them lads, because people were maybe critical of like Cluxton coming back in, and you know, players like James McCarthy sort of aging. I never thought it was a bad thing Cluxton coming back in terms of he can't do it anymore. I think everyone knew he was going to perform. I think it was just more a sense of you're kind of borrowing tomorrow for today, you know, because now he might retire and say he lasts 2 more years and he retires. It doesn't look like the same production lines coming through. Do you think when you talk about last dance, and it might not just be a last dance yet, the Dublin team, you can't see where they're going to go once they stop holding on to these sort of players?
Well, like, I mean, we're talking about the last dance. I totally disagree. Like, the last dance, like, they won the All-Ireland. In the key positions, I thought they got most of the matchups right. You look at Dublin, we're all talking about, like, say, Dean Rock, James McCarthy. Who else are we talking? Fitzsimons. Yeah. There's going to be the same thing in Kerry. You know, there's going to be players looking at retiring. And, like, I mean, from a Kerry point of view, how are they going to be replaced? I don't think they will be replaced. So, you know, all of a sudden you're looking into the under-20s, and, you know, are they able to have that step up at the moment? So, like, it's all about, like, what's the word they call it? The narrative. Everyone thinks that this is the way it's going to be. I totally disagree. Dublin are going to be back next year. There's no doubt about it. They're going to be back.
Absolutely, Mark. We're just going to take that opportunity now to take a quick break and to bring you the Sure 72-hour protection stat quiz. In partnership with our friends at Sure, the official statistic partners of the GAA, we're now going to look at the most eye-catching stats from the weekend. This week's winner is Colin McAllen, so congratulations to Colin. This week, we want to know, now that Dublin are the All-Ireland champions and the dust is settled, we're going to roll the clock back just a little bit and for you to tell us when was the last time that Kerry beat Dublin in an All-Ireland final. So now it's up to you, the audience, to give us the answers in this stat-related question on our social media to be in with a chance of winning some Sure-themed prizes. Just throw your answers into the comments below. Good luck. Well, again, you mentioned Fitzsimons and his battle with Clifford. Is that way Clifford maybe didn't have his best game? Is it purely down to Mick, or is it down to the weather? Is it just pressure?
Yeah, look, I'll be totally honest with you. I thought Fitzsimons did brilliant, and I'm not taking away from his performance in any way. But David had an off day by his standards in terms of the scores that he possibly should have got. So I'm not taking away from Fitzsimons. Mick Fitzsimons is one of the best defenders in the game, if not the best at the moment. He marked the Gooch, he marked David Clifford. I mean, but like for me yesterday, David on another day he would have had 3 or 4 more scores, which would have been 7 from play. So I just think it was a bad day for David, and everyone has a bad day. He's the best footballer I've ever seen, and you know what? He'll be back. He's down today, but he'll be back, and I just think he had a bad day, and I'm not giving out about him because I think he's, as I say, one of the best footballers ever.
He certainly will be back, and he's in contention to win the Player of the Year award. So was Cormac Costello and James McCarthy. But one of the players that doesn't seem to be in the conversation is Mick Fitzsimons, and I'm just wondering, maybe is that because he's a cornerback? He hasn't put a foot wrong all this season, but then you've won a Player of the Year award.
It's very rare for cornerbacks to win Footballer of the Year now.
But that's that's my segue. Thank you very much. 2007, you're Footballer of the Year. Like, I mean, how did that come about? Like, why isn't Mick getting the same? Was it a different era where maybe defenders?
Yeah, well, you see, I suppose Mick Fitzsimons, like, yeah, it's different in the sense that year I remember we played Dublin in the quarter final, I think, and I just tore up the wing. And I think small little things like that have a difference, where you're not just a cornerback. But I mean, if you're in that category, it's so chuffing to be in that category. And I actually was in with the Gooch and Declan O'Sullivan. I didn't think I had a chance, especially with Gooch and Declan, because they were just our best forwards, incredible footballers. And then when you get it, it's a lovely thing to have. And I mean, saying that, you're looking this year, you're looking at Costello, you're looking at James. I'll be honest, lads, I still have David Clifford as Footballer of the Year.
Well, you mentioned there that you can have a bad day. Everyone has a bad day. You'd nearly be like, he was so disappointed after the game. Like, you can see him bouncing back from this. I'd say he'll come back, and
of course he will. He's David Clifford. Of course he will. But like, you think about it, right? He got 3 points from play. By anyone's standards, that's good scoring. But by David Clifford's standards, it's not. And then you see his brother Páidí coming in, like the second half he had was just exceptional. He really stood up. And I was actually saying at half time, we need more fellas to stand up here. Páidí stood up. I tell you one thing, they're a great footballing family, the Cliffords. Yeah. They have, like, from young boys growing up, they just breed Kerry football, and they're a great footballing family.
It was a great moment at the end. David had hit a few shots. I suppose some of them were probably, he took on shots that maybe for the day that was in it, they were probably improbable shots, and 1 or 2 of them kind of ballooned. And during the game, I was watching out, and like Páidí was giving out to him. He was like, "Come on, like, hold on to the ball, keep the head," kind of a thing, and just kind of half giving out. And then the second the final whistle blew, obviously David was devastated. Páidí sprinted straight over to him, put the hand out and put his hat, like, patted him on the head, and was like, it was powerful. It was powerful to see it now.
Oh yeah, you know what? Tough year for the Cliffords. They lost their mom this year. Really tough year. I remember 2002. We lost our dad in June before the Munster final. Before the Munster final replay, we played the drawn match on the Sunday, and my dad passed away on the Tuesday. And you're playing the replay then on the Saturday, and we actually went on to play the best football that we've ever played when I was playing with the Kerry team. And we got to the final against Armagh and we lost. And, devastation, pure devastation, because we felt, this would be a lovely tribute to our dad. And I was actually thinking about the Cliffords a lot yesterday, a lot in the week up to the match. And, and I just felt that they deserve this. and unfortunately for them, pure devastation like us, and that's not going to make them any weaker. I think they're going to come back stronger, and they're fantastic footballers, and they still made their mum proud.
Is that a thing like in 2002 where you're kind of playing for your dad, you're motivated for him the whole way through?
Well, I think you'd use any angle, but obviously, you know, in that situation, of course, you know, you're looking at, you know, you're trying to just win Sam Maguire, and it was that was a tough year for us, and you know, you just try and put yourself in these boys' shoes and the way they carry themselves. I think they're exceptional the way they carry themselves, and they're like my small fella's growing up now, and all he talks about is Páidí and David Clifford and Páidí Ó Sé, and like, so it's the new generation is coming again, which I think is incredible.
You obviously were in a similar situation in the sense that you got to play with your brothers, so winning together, losing together, you know, I mean, it must be a really special thing, but is the devastation sort of in the house doubled because you probably can't even look at him because you're like, oh God, you know, you've got...
Yeah, like I remember the 0-2 final, Dara was captain, and obviously we didn't get over the line. Armagh beat us, and you know what? We were 4 points up at half time. We were really in good commanding position going out the second half. Armagh, they grabbed the game by the scruff of the neck, and I remember after the game, you know, you're having your few beers or whatever, and like I was wondering, where's Dara? And Dara was inside in his own bedroom. You know, he couldn't even come out because he was so depressed. He was the captain of Kerry, and you know, I knocked on the door. I says, all okay? He says, you know, all is good. You know, he says, I'm fine. He says, enjoy the night. But he was obviously so, you know, devastated as well. And, you know, but like, that's football, that's sport. Sport can be cruel. It can be so cruel. And I don't know, was it Roy Keane that was saying it lately that you'll have great days out, but most of the days will actually be disappointing.
Yeah.
You know, and I was lucky enough, I won 5 All-Ireland medals, but then I lost 5 All-Ireland medals as well, so that's sport.
And then that year alone, Páidí was the manager as well, so you're playing with 2 brothers and your uncle's the manager. I mean, it's just a real family feel to it that year.
It was, yeah, you know, and I suppose it was, and I remember, like, I mean, that year, say, for example, when we went on that backdoor run, played 9 championship games. Like, we played Wicklow, we played Fermanagh, we played Kildare, Galway, Cork 3 times, you know, and then you play Armagh in the final. So, look, it for us, we would love to finish the job, obviously, you know, but I mean, Armagh, you look at what they did, and then they say they probably should have won more, you know, so, look, sport.
Well, one person we haven't talked about, and he's in neither team, is the referee. Will they even get into any incidents or situations? Just what did you think of David Goff yesterday?
Thought he was good. Thought he was, like, I was disappointed with the semi-final insofar as, like, there was a lot of off-the-ball stuff that was going on that I didn't like. And, you know, you play the party politics and you say, sure, like, they were doing it to McGuigan as well. But Clifford, like, I mean, it was crazy what was happening off the ball with David Clifford, and he wasn't getting protection. And I was, at one stage, I was in the Hogan stand, and I was looking down, I was looking at the linesman, and he was looking straight at Clifford. And he saw what was happening, but there was nothing to be done about it. So then I said, the final, okay, I actually think it'll be different in the final, because Goff will have that, he'll have his family. I think Goff brings his entourage, his family entourage with him. I thought Goff was very good.
Yeah.
I thought that you know, those key decisions, like the only thing I would say was the David Clifford and Mick Fitzsimons where he gives them the 2 yellows. It was one of them, 2 of them. Okay, does it merit a yellow? Possibly not. But was he making signalling a message by doing that? You know, and I thought he did great. I thought he did a great game. Look, I remember in 2016, who was it that checked Peter Crowley? Was it Kevin McMenamin? And it was a free in for Kerry. Goff came out after, said he didn't see it. You have to give him great credit for saying that he made a mistake.
Yeah.
Then Diarmuid Connolly goes down the other end and kicks one of the greatest scores ever, and that puts them 2 ahead. You know, so look, these small things. But I think, on reflection, I think he had a good game.
on that situation with Clifford, like you're a defender, you surely see it must be tricky because obviously you're a Clifford fan and supporting Kerry, but with you being a defender and the forwards giving you it as much as you're giving them, and then more often than not it's the defender who gets the yellow card in the foul.
It's not really like, because I remember like playing inside there for years, especially when I started off. The forwards is giving it to you as well, you know, and like, I mean, like you say, but like what I used to do, it depended on who I'd be marking. If I was marking, say, a smaller, slighter fella, I might stand maybe side to side. If I was marking a stronger, bigger fella, I might just play a small yard in front. But then if I'm marking a Donaghy, I'm playing that yard in front because I know if I'm going to tangle with him, he's going to push me off. But also, if that ball comes in high, I need to be able to be back there just to punch it out, because I'm not going to catch it with him because he's so tall. So I need to be able to punch that ball away. So it depends. Horses for courses. Depends who you're marking. And I always had that mantra when I was playing football.
How would you mark David Clifford?
Say a few prayers the night before, I'd say.
Hope for the best.
We used to always have things, myself and Mike McCarthy and Tom O'Sullivan, the old Tom O'Sullivan. And we used to just, if we denied possession out the field, if the boys put enough pressure out the field, we always felt we had a great chance. We always felt we could get a hand in, you know, break a ball away. And I'd imagine that'd be the only thing that I could do with David Clifford, is try and deny possession. But I'd say a few prayers.
Well, on the Sunday game, Enda McGinley was sort of implying, well, he said it outright actually. He said that James McCarthy maybe crossed the line a couple of times and in fact danced over the line and was maybe lucky, you know, a different referee or a different situation, he could have been sent off. And would you follow that line of thought? Or maybe
I'd follow that line of thought. But come here, I mean, the amount of games that we've played in where Tomas went over the line, Dara went over the line, Paul Galvin went over the line.
Did you ever go over the line?
They're once or twice. But they're the players you want. And if James McCarthy's going over the line, like, I've so much respect for that man.
Yeah.
And like, I saw him yesterday and I was like saying, why can't we do that? Why don't we have the players that'll do that? And what a footballer he is, like, and you know, and I don't, you know, when I see him going up the steps, obviously, you know, they do what they do, but I couldn't begrudge James McCarthy, I'll tell you that.
Are they the type of moments that win games?
Oh, absolutely, yeah. They definitely are the moments that win the games. The James McCarthy's making those, and like, he got away with them, and you know, I mean, good luck to him.
Yeah.
You know, we'd like to get away with him as well. We didn't.
Yeah, you came up against some of the Tyrone teams that maybe would have got away with things.
Yeah, I suppose. Well, I think Tyrone were more kind of clever in their outlook on us. Like, I mean, with Dara. Like, Dara would go up and he'd catch balls, but when he came down, there was 5 or 6 fellas surrounding him, you know. So they had their homework done on us. Like, Tommy Walsh and Kieran Donaghy inside full forward, you know, they brought the two McMahons back, you know. They were, Mickey Hart, like, it deserves huge credit for what they did in that period.
Are Kerry missing something like that?
They had the players as well. Sorry, they had the players as well. You obviously have to have the players, you know, and they had the players. Mickey Hart can then devise a plan on doing what he wants to do, but if you have the players, you have a great chance. Yeah,
I did it, Niall. I fired in a Tyrone question somehow.
Sorry, no.
Are they missing like that bit of bowelness, kind of?
A Kerry? They are, yeah. I think so.
Like, don't have a lad who's going to kind of go over the edge a small bit.
You've Páidí Clifford, you've David Clifford, who I think is also one of those fellas, but you've Tadhg Morley. Yeah, you're missing a few of those players. Of course you are.
Especially when you have a David Clifford who's going to get so much attention.
Yeah.
You need someone like an enforcer.
But I think David is an enforcer even himself.
Yeah.
I think just that, you know, he's an incredible footballer, but yeah, I think that we are missing those two. And like, I think the story going into the game was, this is Dublin's last chance. I don't go with that theory at all. I think that Dublin could be around for the next few years, you know. I mean, why should Kerry take over now? Derry have a great chance. Monaghan are looking and they're saying, you know, so I don't buy into that theory at all.
Well, I want to ask you about your brother because he was on one in the Sunday game. He was very entertaining. They asked him to reveal the Sunday game player of the year, and his first words were, "Well, I think we got it wrong." The answer was James McCarthy, but he just wanted to get it in there first that he thought it should be David Clifford. So.
I think it should be David Clifford.
Okay. Well, why is that?
Because I think he's been the most exceptional footballer so far this year. I think James McCarthy, we can do sentiment, we can do what we want, and James McCarthy has 9 All-Ireland medals now. But was he the best player on the pitch in the final? No. Was David Clifford the best player on the pitch in the final? No. But leading up to the final, who was the best player on view so far in this year in the championship? And it was David Clifford. Mm-hmm. So by that alone, David Clifford, in my view, has to get Footballer of the Year. And like James McCarthy, of course, like, don't get me wrong, I admire that man so much. I think, like I've said it already, I think he's an incredible footballer. But in terms of Footballer of the Year, David Clifford.
They also announced that Paul Mannion, man of the match. Would you go along with that thinking?
I would say Paul Mannion, yeah. Yeah, he got 4 points, I think, from play. He was outstanding. Fitzsimons obviously did a great job on David.
It was a hard one to pick. Yes,
very hard one.
You think Páidí Clifford? Yeah.
Well, I thought Páidí Clifford was the best player on the pitch. I just thought he was like outstanding in the game. But the losing player isn't going to get man to match on All-Ireland final day. Maybe Brian Howard was thereabouts.
Yeah. Howard,
the kickouts.
The kickouts, Cluxton got to Howard, and then Howard has gone off his route after 60 minutes, was it? You know, so but the kickouts, Cluxton got to Howard. Howard was hugely influential in that game, and I think that maybe Dublin were looking at maybe the Derry game and how Oran Lynch was so effective and going up the field. Dublin knew Cluxton was never going to do that, but if they had a go-to guy in the full back line where they could start up there, and I thought Kerry should have pushed up more, and they didn't. And look, I mean, I think that Howard had a huge influence.
Yeah. Any say for Colin Pascal? Some people call him and say he got man of the match. Yeah, he was brilliant in the second half. Yeah.
But I used to always hate marking a fella who'd be poor on the previous game. You know, like, because you knew, oh my God, he had a poor game. If you're playing inter-county football, you're never going to play back-to-back poor games, really. And Pascal, he has set the championship alight. But the semi-final, he was poor, and he was taken off. And then you had like Costello, who was outstanding. And I said, whoever is marking Pascal really needs to win the first 2 or 3 balls. But I thought he played very well yesterday. Very well.
Well, when they were picking the team of the year, they sort of had a full forward line. It was Colin Pascal, Shane McGuigan, David Clifford, obviously. And then the half forward line was Paul Mannion, Sean O'Shea and Páidí Clifford. So Cormac Costello actually missed out. But going by what you're saying, that you should pick it on the season, you know,
I'd have Cormac Costello ahead of Paul Mannion.
Yeah, well, that's what I had him ahead of Paul Mannion.
Because Mannion was outstanding yesterday, but going in the season, Costello was probably better. You know, and you see that's what the All-Stars are, though. The bigger the game, you know, and a lot of people give out about the All-Stars. And then I have a buddy who played for Kerry for years, and he never won an All-Star. But I'd say, you know, he probably feels hard done by, and rightly so. But he can't give out about it because he never got one. But then you have a fella who gets an All-Star, but they can give out, because I think All-Stars sometimes can be, there's a bit of sentiment with All-Stars, there's a bit of maybe geographical, whatever it is. But I think by and large they get them right, but there's the odd call. It's all opinion, you know.
Well, tell me about the All-Stars. Like, do you just find out there on the day when they call out the names?
I mean, the All-Stars were always the Wednesday and the Friday. So the hurlers would find out one year on the Wednesday, which I thought was wrong. And the footballers would find out on the Friday. And then the vice versa, the footballers would find out on the Wednesday. You should find out on the night. And I remember, like, there was years where there used to be arguments inside in the City West Hotel because of the All-Stars, you know, and it's all opinion, you know. I mean, in fairness, it's all opinion. And I think once you're happy with your own performances, and the big thing about the All-Stars is whoever wins the All-Ireland gets the most All-Stars, you know, and Dublin have won the All-Ireland, they'll get the most All-Stars.
Did you enjoy them nights, like when you won All-Stars, meeting with players from other teams and that? And
It was good crack. I remember there was one year we came down, myself and Dara. We flew down the following day, and we had a tough night of it the night before, and we threw the All-Stars on the overcarriage or whatever you call it, and we got off anyway. I don't think there was much turbulence, but we came down and Dara's All-Star was totally bent. He had to get it pulled back by a specialist, but little moments like that,
And what about the Player of the Year? Did you know that in advance?
I didn't. I found out that night that I was getting the Player of the Year, and I actually couldn't believe it, to be totally honest, because obviously I was in the same category. The three of us were Gooch, myself and Declan, and I actually couldn't believe it because I said, there's no way I'm getting it ahead of the two boys. And I remember just there, and somebody came up to me and said it to me, you're getting the Player of the Year. And I remember Gooch and Declan right next to me and said, congratulations, well done. And I felt like a small bit of a fraud in a way, because here I am next to two of the greatest players that ever played with Kerry, and I'm actually getting this award ahead of them, which I felt they deserved more than me. But that team that we had, that team 06-07, there was a huge bond in that team. There was an unbreakable bond, and those fellas were incredible.
Yeah,
You go to war with Gooch, you go to war with Declan, Dara, Shamo, Aidan O'Mahony, Tomas, Paul Galvin. You go to war with all those fellas.
Yeah, you were going for 3 in a row the following year, but you got it back in 2009. You mentioned earlier that back to back is so difficult. How did you guys do it?
Obviously we won 0-6, which I thought was our best team, because we had, like, say, Murph in goal, myself, Mike McCarthy, Tom O'Sullivan. I thought that was a good full back line, because in terms of, say, man marking, we had 3 man markers there. I could man mark, Tom could man mark, Mike McCarthy could man mark. Then you had your half back line. And so if you put that into play yesterday, I think that would have been a huge thing, like, in terms of, like, say, whatever players Dublin put into the full forward line, we had our man markers, and then, say, you had your half back line, you had Tomas, Seamus Moynihan, Aidan O'Mahony, a huge half back line as well, and you could put Shamo back into the full back line. What I think makes a great team is flexibility. You look at James McCarthy in the last few years, he was able to go back in full back on Tommy Walsh in 2019 in the drawn match. So you've got, if you have flexibility in your team, and if you have players that can play in different positions, you have answers and you have solutions.
Well, what's interesting about that back to back was it was 2 different managers.
Yeah, well, I suppose, second year, Páidí Ó Sé, I suppose we had to, new manager comes in, and you almost have to prove yourself all over again.
Even though you're already a champion.
Yeah. So, like, you're trying to prove to this guy why you're there. So that was interesting. And Pat was a good manager who motivated the team to the last, and different outlook to Jack, obviously. But it was great to win the back to back.
Does it give you all the more admiration for teams like Limerick and Dublin who done it 4, 5 in a row, 6 in a row? Like, how do they keep it going that long?
Incredible, really, when you consider, like, what they've done. And I mean, the Dubs. Do you know what? I don't know that I say this already, but when the Dubs lost in 2020 and 2021, I always felt that it reminds me, even chatting to my Uncle Páidí, 82, 83, that they were going to come back strong. And they did. Like, they came back so strong. And I think that hurt got them over the line yesterday. Like, the hurt that got Kerry over the line, 84, 85, 86. Met Mikey Sheehy during the week, and he actually said, if the game is tight, Dublin will have that memory bank where they can go to, and they know they can win All Ireland's going down the stretch. Mm-hmm. And I thought it was a very revealing comment by Mikey, because he said we had that in 84, 85, 86, where Tyrone should have beaten us in 86, Dublin should have beaten us in 85, but we had that memory bank where we knew we could win All Ireland's. I think Dublin had that.
Just so you mentioned Páidí there, like, I can imagine growing up with him as your uncle, that like, what sort of an influence was he, like, from a very young age on your football career? Like, was it?
He was huge. He was he was a great influence, obviously, in terms of football. And back then, like, say, Sam Maguire, there wasn't the demand on the Sam Maguire. We came from a small school, 26 students inside in our school, and when Páidí won the Sam, it was like maybe winning it the seventh time in maybe 9 years, and every student could bring the Sam Maguire home for the night, and there was 4 of us, so we obviously Páidí was living next door anyway, so the Sam was there. But can you imagine that every student could bring the Sam Maguire home for a night? But you'd see all the Kerry players coming to the house, the likes of the Bombers, the Shawnee Welches, the Yogis, all these fellas, and oh my God, all we ever wanted to do then was play football. And Páidí then became manager in '96. Dara started. My eldest brother Fergal got injured. He was unlucky. Tomas gets in, and all I wanted to do then was just join the boys. But there I am in the stand with my dad, and he's kicking every ball with the lads. And anytime they kick the ball, you get the knee pushing into you. My dad was, he kicked every ball with them, and they'd give off the ball, and then he'd be grand, But he was just hopeful that all the boys would do the right thing.
There must be some crack back at the house then after a match when you'd all come back together, like.
It was good crack when we won.
Yeah.
It wasn't too much crack when we lost, but it was good crack because you had the likes of Darragh Kinnead, Adán McArlt. We were a tight group, and we used to have great old buzz when we'd win a game and go for a few jars. Great crack.
Well, here, I just find it interesting actually because you obviously have that connection with Páidí, being your uncle, and he was the manager and stuff, but he didn't leave Kerry in the best of terms, and it was Jack O'Connor who actually replaced him, the current Kerry manager. Was that awkward for you and your brothers?
Of course it was. Very awkward because obviously he was our uncle, he was our hero, and I suppose the way it was dealt with wasn't the best in terms of, he was told by somebody else that he was getting the road. So we felt that he was, I suppose, what he had achieved with Kerry in terms of playing and managing, we felt he was hard done by. And, that was a bitter pill to swallow, I can tell you. And
then did Jack have to win you over then, to a certain degree?
No, I have to give Jack great credit because Jack came in and we went as far as the All-Ireland Club final, the Gaeltacht, and I had my place in the team in 02 and 03, and then I was gone. That time the whole league was it changed from the few league games before Christmas. All the league games were after Christmas. So Aidan O'Mahony came in, Paul Galvin came in, and when I came back after St. Patrick's Day when the All-Ireland Club final, I had no position on the team, so I was looking in. So Jack obviously made a hard call, and at the time, you look back at it now, you say it was the right call. So I really had to fight hard to get my spot back. And no, I have to give Jack great credit. I thought he did a great job when he came in.
Well, he's the man in charge now, so it's up to him really to bring this Kerry team back. You mentioned before that the hurt can actually make a good team, and
of course again.
David Clifford maybe feeling the hurt after that final. Jack O'Connor will definitely be feeling the hurt. I actually just read his book literally about 2 weeks ago, and
Jack's book,
and it's basically all based from losing the 05 final and responding in 2006, and just how determined and how sickened he was. He goes off to the little island on his own and stuff. So is he the man in charge? Is he the right man, to get this Kerry team to bounce back?
I suppose Jack has this innate ability to kind of go when he needs to go and then put his hat in the ring for when he needs to come back. I'd like to see him stay on, to be totally honest, for another year or two, because I think these players need him at the moment. But also I think the team need to stay on. I think that the Paddy Tallies, the Mike Quirks, the Diarmuid Murphys, I think they need to stay on. I think they have a bit of unfinished business to do, to be totally honest, and I think they need to stay on and win another All-Ireland.
Well, there's no better man to do it. I think he's got 4 in the bag already. That's all we have time for. Thank you so much to Marc Ó Sé for coming on to the show. Thank you to Niall. Thanks to our sponsors, Sure 72-Hour Protection. This is the final show for what will hopefully only be a short break, and we'll see you all very soon.
You've been listening to the GAA Hour, brought to you by Sports Joe and Sure. 72-hour non-stop protection, tested to the limits. Sure, it won't let you down.